Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alfred Mosher. I'm an organizer here with Voices of Experience Vote. I'm here today with Miss Michelle Woodfork, who's running for sheriff. Also with Eugene Dean, who is also a member of Vote, organizer here with Vote. So today I just want to start us off with you, Mr. Woodfork, by just start us off by telling our community who you are, why you are running for sheriff, and what values and life experience would you bring to the job?
Well, first I want to say thank you for doing this. I think it's really crucial that we inform people about who's running, about the different candidates. So I appreciate you inviting me here and giving me this opportunity. I am Michelle Woodfork. I am a native New Orleanian. I grew up in New Orleans East. I'm a graduate of St. Mary's Academy and a graduate of Southern University at New Orleans, where I received my bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in criminal justice with a concentration in law enforcement. I'm a 35-year law enforcement professional, um, and I am a proven leader with uncompromising integrity. From when I started as a deputy sheriff to a police officer and to this city's first female superintendent of the New Orleans Police Department, I'm the only candidate that has the experience and the knowledge to fix the things that are wrong inside the Orleans Parish Sheriff. As a superintendent, I authored and implemented a strategic plan that brought violent crime down 25%, carjackings down 45%, and also tripled officer recruitment. And that hadn't been done in maybe 6 years or so before I was named as a superintendent. That strategic plan is still currently being used by our current police chief Ann Kirkpatrick and her team, and it continues to bring violent crime down and crime overall down in the city. So it's working, and I think it worked because I understand this city and our culture, and I understand the challenges we face. So if elected as the next sheriff of Orleans Parish, I'll bring immediate transparency and accountability to the office by focusing on recruitment and retention, jail facility improvements, rehabilitation, reentry, and reunification. Because I know that what happens inside our jail, it impacts what goes on in our communities. It impacts the safety on our streets. It affects our quality of life. And right now, the public has lost trust and confidence in the office. And that's due to poor management hires, poor leadership, continued violence. And this agency needs a proven law enforcement leader, one who has ran a large agency of over 1,200 people, ran a budget of $166 million, and been fiscally sound. And my commitment to the people of New Orleans is to use my superior law enforcement experience, my education, and just good common sense to bring safety, not to just inside the jail, but safety for all of New Orleans. And so, again, I'm Michelle Woodfork, and I'm number 6 on the ballot, and I'm a candidate for sheriff.
Thank you for that, Ms. Woodfork. What this just happened to the jail budget and transparency? I want to talk a little bit about that. Our community have spent hundreds of millions of new jails that opened up about a decade ago. Yet it still has leaked, broken locks. Meanwhile, the same Grace Herbert architects and it's McDaniel's construction are currently spending over $100 million of our money to build expansion. First, are you concerned with that same $100 million of money? Excuse me. First, are you concerned with some of the same problems will persist for the new facility? Second, specifically, would you ensure that OPS construction bill budget possess transparency?
Absolutely. It's not only the sheriff's job for the care, custody, and control of the jail, and also the security of both civil district court and criminal district court. You have to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, in order to make sure certain that there's transparency inside the budget in the way that we're spending, we have to do an audit of the budget. A really a top to bottom audit of the current budget to make sure that we're not wasting taxpayer dollars in what we're doing, and in order to make sure that we're not spending dollars on emergency situations inside the jail. I think a lot of money is going to that when we could have hired an engineer who's certified and qualified in correctional facilities to make sure this building is being maintained properly. It's only 10 years old, yeah. Right? And it's just like if you buy a home or a car, mm-hmm. you have to get the oil change, you have to have your air conditioner checked, mm-hmm. you have to have a staff, a facility staff that makes sure that all those things are done. This was a state of the art facility that was built. It has a power plant. It has a real intricate plumbing system, a hydraulic plumbing system that you just can't cut all the water off at one time. It has to be cut off in parts, right? And when you cut it off all at once, that's what gives you the plumbing problems. Also, it has a soft water system. And with a soft water system, you have to test it annually, make sure you're putting the proper chemicals in it to make sure that you are maintaining that soft water system. If you don't, it deteriorates the plumbing. I've heard stories of like plumbing leaking down into the cells and different things like that, and that's just not that's unacceptable. Mm-hmm. Although people are there, they're detained there. This is pretrial stuff that they're there for. They're there to have their day in court. They have not been convicted of any crimes yet, and so even if they were, you still have to treat people humanely, and they have to live in humane conditions. So definitely, I would be looking at the budget to make sure we're not wasting money on emergency stuff that should have probably been maintained from the very beginning. And you just have to do a forensic audit of that budget to make sure that you're spending those dollars properly and cutting waste, mm-hmm. and putting it back into improving the facility, getting training for deputies. So the budget is a huge thing, but definitely making sure that the maintenance that needs to be done on this building is absolutely being done on a regular basis.
And you would use the same contract you go with Grace and Herbert.
I think day one you have to go through those contracts and make sure they are the person, or the company, or the contractors that are going to be doing the correct job. I think we have to be more transparent about that too, and mm-hmm. honest. Mm-hmm. Is this the right contractor? Is this was about doing a friend a favor, or is this the right contractor for this facility? And I'm definitely going to do that, audit that, make sure that the contractors or vendors that we are using are best for this agency.
Good is fine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You emphasize accountability and integrity. Mm-hmm. How will you put that into practice? For example, will you require all deputies to wear body cameras? And will you make use of force and misconduct investigation public? What specific steps will you take to make sure deputies who break rules are disciplined, and that this information is transparent to the community?
And, in any law enforcement agency, you have to have structure and order. And so you have to have rules and regulations, and those rules and regulations should be made public, right? What rules and regulations are in place that deputies have to follow, that staff members have to follow. I think it should definitely be out on the website for people to see. And you have to have discipline that is fair in order to hold people accountable. You can't, I've witnessed that before in NOPD at some point prior to a consent decree. Some being treated one way, getting one kind of discipline, and somebody else getting the same kind of discipline, less discipline for the same kind of action. And so you have to make sure that you have clear rules, regulations, processes, and procedures, and you have to enforce them. You have to hold your supervisors accountable. The sheriff has to hold her executive team, command staff, and on down, top to bottom, has to be held accountable for what duties that they have to perform, and also making sure that the people under them are performing the duties that they have to perform, and are doing it in a professional way, doing it in a constitutional way. And when something does happen, because things do happen, right? In any law enforcement agency, it happened in NOPD, it happens in other law enforcement agencies around the country and in our state. You have to have clear discipline rules. You have to have a disciplinary matrix. And so it can be clear. If you do this, these are the consequences. This is what could happen to you, or this is the punishment that you're going to receive. And you have to be steadfast in that. You have to make sure that you are enforcing that, and that brings a level of accountability for everybody from the top on down.
Thank you.
Let's just talk a little bit about health care oversight. Many people enter the jail with health and mental health crisis, and some of them have medication at home, upcoming appointments they cannot keep. Within about 150 new people booked into the jail every week, what changes would you make, if any, to improve 24/7 health care?
Well, going in day one, you have to make sure, as soon as that person goes into the intake processing center, that they have to have a qualified medical professional, not a deputy, to assess whatever their medical or mental health needs, even substance abuse issues that may a medical a team. So you have to have that particular staff there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and somebody right there when they walk in the door. And I think you should create a plan for that person as they walk in the door, so you can make sure they get all the proper medical health care that they need, or mental health treatments that they need. And so again, going in day one, because I'm not currently in that agency or in the position, you have to do an audit of that. Is this is the medical contractors that we have, are they the best for this facility? Are you getting it? Are you getting the best for quality care for the money that is being spent? And you have to have checks and balances to make sure that stuff is being done, making sure people get proper medical care, making sure the females that are inside the facility get proper prenatal care, get proper just women's health care that they need. And for everybody, those who are most vulnerable, those who are suffering from chronic illnesses, or illnesses that may take their life, such as cancer, are they getting the proper treatment that they need? But you have to have a checks and balances to make sure that everybody inside this facility is getting the proper medical, mental health care, substance abuse care that they need. And in order to do that, you have to have a medical team of qualified medical health care professionals to do this.
That's what I like. I like hearing qualified people. Okay.
Qualified.
And speaking of staff, it's going to be a little lengthy.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I'm
You might have to repeat it.
It's okay. That's fine. Speaking of staffing, OPSO and NOPD have a long history of understaffing and rolling out expensive new recruiting programs, at times with a variety of perks and bonuses. Sheriff Hudson has increased the pay, yet instead understaffed. Despite there being a very low bar of qualification, next year the federal court will order OPSO to staff the expansion. If this can't be done beforehand, you've spoken often about your recruiting success at NOPD during your year as the chief. Why do you feel you would succeed where Sheriff Gusman and Hudson have not? In the city with so many people saddled by criminal histories, would you consider hiring people with a felony on their record to serve in a place where they may actually have expertise? And lastly, Sheriff Hudson is under fire regarding transporting people to court on the weekend, which is just one block away, as everyone knows. She has suggested this can't be done through Zoom instead, and the issue has been appealed to a higher court. How would you handle the situation given the staffing crunch?
Okay, let's go back to the
first one.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand the long history of understaffing and rolling out expensive new recruiting programs, at times with a variety of perks and bonuses. Sheriff Hudson has increased the pay, yet is still understaffed. Despite there being a low bar of qualification, Next year, the federal court will order OPSO to staff the expansion. If this can't be done beforehand, you've spoken about your recruiting success at NOPD during your year as the chief. Why do you feel you would succeed these Sheriff Gusman and Hudson have not?
Um, well, as we all know, and it's been in all the news stories that staffing a law enforcement agency is a challenge. Since the George Floyd incident, it has been a true challenge for everyone around the country, and so you have to be very creative when it comes to recruiting. And there are so many different things that we tried and we were successful at. We connected with the military, those coming out of active duty service, and trying to entice them to come to the New Orleans Police Department by offering pay incentives, and not only the military, but those who are in college. They're criminal justice majors at all the colleges around. We have Dillard, we have Southern University at New Orleans, we have Xavier, we have Tulane and Loyola. Courting those universities to see if we could actually get people to come on and join, and doing a national search, partnering with a national firm, using the Indeed app and stuff, and different things like that, trying those things. But more importantly, what you can do right here, boots on the ground, is a culture change. And when I say a culture change, people have to see this job that has a career path. And when I say a career path and changing culture, this shouldn't be just seen as a stepping stone to the Louisiana State Police or the NOPD or some other agency. You have to give these people incentives and hope inside of the agency, and how you do that is make things fair. Ensure that promotional process is going to go fair. Making sure that you go to the city council and say, this is why these people need a starting salary of $24 or $25 an hour, not $18.50. Find a way in your budget process without asking for extra millage or extra tax from citizens to cut the fat on things that are non-essential and that absolutely are not needed, to give these people raises, an incentive to stay to take this job and to go higher. Offer them educational incentives. Offer them training incentives and special things like possibly use of force training and crisis intervention training. That's how you're going to gather that core that you need. That's what we did at NOPD. I put a recruitment team together of people who had been recruiting for a very long time, and put someone who I knew could get the job done. And that's how we were able to go through the process of hiring 105 new police recruits and 104 civilian employees. So that's my answer to the first little part. What's the second?
The second one is, in a city with so many people saddled by criminal histories, would you consider hiring people with a felony on their record to serve in a place where they actually have expertise?
I would. There would be some caveats to it, of course. Hiring those people, making sure I hire them in jobs that they wouldn't have direct contact with those who are currently being held at the facilities. But I think that just because a person may have a felony conviction on their record does not write them out of society and does not write them out of a good job. I think that definitely people deserve second and third chances. But you have to give them the tools that they need in order to be successful in society. Most of the people that are in jail are there because of circumstances, whether it's substance abuse, whether it's homelessness, whether it's education, no job, skill trade, or anything like that. So I think that they need the opportunity, but there have to be some steadfast rules in place, a lot of supervision, a lot of monitoring. But I think that everybody deserves a second and third chance, especially if they're trying to do the right thing, trying to be a viable citizen. That helps stop recidivism. It helps to keep our crime numbers down. So I think we have to definitely explore giving people those second and third chances.
Cool. And this last one here, Sheriff Hudson is under fire regarding transporting people to court on the weekends, which is just one block away, as everyone knows. She has suggested this can be done through Zoom instead, and the issue has been appealed to a higher court. How would you handle the situation given the staffing crunch?
how I would handle this is there is a staffing crunch, right? There is a shortage, which again you have to be creative. First and foremost, the sheriff is obligated to make sure that people go to court to get their day in court constitutionally, and I'm always gonna go by the law. I'm gonna always follow the law and do things in a constitutional way. So you have to find a way to transport these people over to court. They've been doing it since the 1970s, so it's not something that hasn't been done. As a matter of fact, when I started my law enforcement career, I was a deputy sheriff that actually worked in the court. That was my primary job. Although at times I did work on the jail tiers and in the subpoena and capious unit, my primary job was to work in court. And so I had to transport female inmates over to court to have their day in court. So in order to do that, what she could possibly do is use your reserve corps. From what I understand, they may have about 60 to 100 reserve deputies that are commissioned by the sheriff. They could sign an agreement to work 10 hours a month. If you have 100, that's a whole 10 hours is not a whole lot of hours, and you have 100 people, 60 to 100 people that could put in those hours. You can train them on how to transport those people to and from the facility over to court, and also how to secure the courthouse while those first appearances are going on. You have 72 hours to get these people to a first appearance. It's their constitutional right. And so that is definitely a way that I'm going to explore making sure that happens, because it also is safety concerns by the judges. You know, we want everybody to feel safe. We want families who are arriving to see what's going on with their loved ones who do have a first appearance. We want them to feel safe. And so you have to secure the court. And I think that is a great way to do it. That is, the cost of giving a reserve deputy a commission, allowing them to use the sheriff's commission, that you have to commit to do these hours, making sure we're able to transport those people to court. So I think that's a solution to it.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Let's talk about mental health alternative. When you hear people talk about program inside the jail, it often sounds like they are talking about prison. The reality is most people in jail are there for a few days or a few months, while others can languish for well over a year. Given that turnover in people, what would you do to make the jail a place where you can provide some intervention for social service?
I think, again, when people enter the processing center, they need a plan on what their issues may be, and what programs we have that we can help them with, whether it's, like I said, substance abuse, mental health issues, and the like. Have to have a plan from day one for them on to them moving out. And once they're moving out, we have to follow the data on these programs that we're using, right? Because we want to use community-based programs because we want to support the community, we want to support our economy, and so we want to use those programs, but the programs that are working. So it needs to be evidence-based programs that we use for those people who are either there for a couple of days. You don't know what information that we could get somebody that can really help them in those 2 or 3 days that they're there. That is going to help them be a better person on the outside. And even those who languish a long time, educational opportunities if they're there for sometimes, but also follow it out. Make sure that we're keeping up with the data, keeping up with those people, and see if they're being successful on the out through programs that we provide as far as re-entry or rehabilitation inside the end. I think it's so important about reunification. It's not talked about a lot, but family is everything, right? And when one person goes to jail, it's collateral damage. It affects a mom, a dad, a spouse, or whatever. So I think the reunification piece is extremely important, and we have to do a better job at it. What I learned just recently, that there are no in-person visits, family visits. That alone has to affect someone's mental ability to not go to violence inside the facility and different things like that, we have to find a way to have some in person contact. I just think that affects people's mental state a lot, especially when you are languishing in there more time than you thought you were going to be there. So I think we have to do a better job in that, but we have to definitely use evidence-based programs. Make sure we're collecting data, not only when they're in there, but when they're on the outside, so we can make sure that those programs that we are using are actually working for us. Because if they're not, we can say that. Let's be transparent about it. Hey, we tried this program. The data shows that it is not working for the people that we've ushered through it, and we need to move on to something else. But make sure that the people are aware of it, what we're doing, having a data dashboard that tells you all about those programs and the success or failures of them. So I think that's real important.
Okay, we're gonna jump on ICE cooperation. The crime sheriff is in the crosshair of state and federal officials who A, would like all consent decrees to be gone, B, pass a law ordering everyone to fully assist ICE, the Federal Immigration Enforcement Agency. What is your take on that controversy, and how would you handle it?
Well, as a law enforcement officer, I have to follow the laws. When you raise your right hand, take an oath, you have to follow the laws, and that's what I'm going to do. Right now, understand that there is a provision inside the federal consent decree, and we got to keep in mind this federal consent decree was implemented in 2013. So it happened before these current laws that are on the books, state laws that are on the books happened. So, of course, the federal consent decree and state law in conflict. So we have to leave that part to the legal experts and the courts to decide what's right, what the decision is going to be from then, and then we have to follow those laws. It doesn't matter for a law enforcement officer such as myself whether I agree or disagree with a law. I take an oath to follow the law. Whatever the law is, that's what I have to follow, and that's my take on it. But the provision, of course, it's a conflict now. So you are in a crosshair about what to do. But if there is a court order that is issued by a judge or that I have to follow as a law enforcement officer, I have to follow it, right? But I think the immigration piece right now is on ICE and not particularly on the sheriff. But the sheriff is compelled to follow whatever law is put on the books, and that's what I've been doing my whole career. Have to follow the laws.
Thank you.
Still about pretrial detention and bail. The sheriff does not control who goes into the jail, and also does not control the release and sending people elsewhere. Over the past 4 years, our jail population has more than doubled and has been over the city council jail capacity ordinance for quite a while. First, do you know why there are so many people ordered into jail? Second, as a leader, officer, enforcement official, what would you do to reduce that?
Well, I know there are several programs that pay small amount of bails for people. Some people are just poor and they can't afford, no matter how small the amount is, they just can't afford it. So I would support programs like that to help those people who are have allegedly committed small or nonviolent crimes in order to get out. So I would support those type of programs. I would also encourage my criminal justice partners to make sure that the wheels of justice are going, in a way where it's efficient and effective, and that's getting in a room with the DA, getting in a room with the judges from court, and talking about what's holding up particular cases in the criminal justice system, and trying to figure out a way how we can make the wheels of justice rotate a little faster, and just I think collaborating with your criminal justice partners and people that are on the city council or the mayor's administration, other elected officials, getting in the room, talking with them about how we can make this process move a little faster, I think will yield all of us better results, not just in the criminal justice system, but in the city.
That's it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
First steps on the job. You have outlined many goals. What is one concrete thing you would do immediately, say on day one or within your first 100 days, to demonstrate that OPSO is changing? For example, is there a specific audit, policy change, or community meeting you will launch right away to show you mean business about reform and transparency?
I do a couple of things. First and foremost, a forensic audit of the budget. Gotta see where the money is going. We have to make sure that we're good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and it also needs to be very transparent about how we're spending money. So day one, that forensic audit has to be done to make sure we're cutting all the fat. So the extra money that we do find or we may find inside the agency, we can use it towards the repairs in jail, hiring more deputies for safety and security inside the jail. And so another thing that would be big is to make sure that everybody inside this agency are working in areas where they are qualified to do so. Hiring those who are versed in, especially on the executive team, who are versed in corrections and law enforcement and are qualified to do those jobs. That's really important. And making sure it's fair. The upper mobility inside the agency is done in a fair way, because that boosts morale. Making sure I am supporting my deputies, not only just with pay incentives, but making sure that their health and wellness is being taken care of. I think it's really important. I think if you treat the people who work for you, if you treat them well and you are fair to them, they'll almost work for you for nothing, right? Because I know I would. That's really important about how you're treated. So definitely going through the entire staffing corps to make sure that people are in the correct jobs and right jobs, and making sure I get the proper training for the deputies that work there, whether that be crisis intervention training, use of force training, making sure they get all the equipment that they need, upgrading technology inside of the jail. That means cameras, all those things that have to do with supervision inside the jail. Make that sure that it's upgraded, and making sure that we have a small team of policy writers, auditors, and attorneys to address the federal consent decree. I think as a New Orleans police officer and being put under a federal consent decree, and I've served as a sergeant under the lieutenant and a captain, we really needed it at that time. They needed those reforms put in place. And as you can see, the department is working a whole lot better because of it. But it also cost a tremendous amount of money. And so you have to have that small team working to make sure all those reforms are put in place and that we are moving to the end of this federal consent decree. Right now, I think the Sheriff's Department is at 43% compliance or something like that. We have to move forward because they've been in the consent decree just about as long as NOPD has been in theirs. Currently, the NOPD is in the sustainment period, which they're monitoring themselves and making sure those reforms are sustainable. That's where I want to get the sheriff's office, and I know how to do that. I moved us forward in the federal consent decree, but it takes time. It takes a team. It didn't happen with just one chief. This thing went through about 4 or 5 chiefs to get to the sustainment period. So, although it takes time, it should be much further. The Sheriff's Department should be much further along in this federal consent decree, and it's putting the right people in place in order to get that done. So those are my top things. Day one, having a strategic plan, and that strategic plan is going to be built with my partners. And when I say partners, my local, state, and federal partners, representatives from those agencies, and the criminal justice system, somebody from the DA's office, somebody from the courts, somebody from the clerk's office, and somebody from the council, someone from the community, definitely community, 1 or 2 or 3 from the community, because it's their money, it's our jail, And so they have to have a seat at the table. Having someone from the mayor's administration sit down, create a strategic plan together, making sure we know that what's important to each of those stakeholders. Have someone from the business community there too, making sure that everybody has a seat at the table and we come up with a plan collectively and hold me accountable to make sure that plan is executed. Because I don't just like to make plans to make plans. I like to make plans to execute. We can talk about plans and what we can do or won't will do or whatever, but I like execution. And so those are that strategic plan, the budget, recruitment and retention, consent decree compliance, and improving jail facilities. Making sure this jail is safe. The improvements to this jail, making sure that no one can get let out, break out, walk out. All of those processes need to be addressed. Those are the core 4 or 5 things that I am definitely going to be focused on if elected as your next sheriff.
One follow-up. Most people that take office, they bring in their own team. As the current team that's in there, would you do that, like clean house for us in the upper administrative part of it?
First of all, I think it's I don't want to say crazy. I want to give a good word. I think it's counterproductive to get rid of institutional knowledge. Right? There are people who've been there for decades now. They understand the operation of the agency. They know how it works. They may need some corrective things because they've been in dysfunction for a while or whatever. But I think it's I don't think it's very smart to get rid of your institutional knowledge. So am I going to go in and wipe everybody out? No, I'm not. But am I going to do a national search for different spots inside of it, a warden or someone who is the CAO or CFO inside that, who are versed in correctionals? Yes. That who are versed in correctional facilities? Yes, I probably will. But I am not going in and wipe out the entire agency. That is just not smart. It is not fair to the people who have worked there for a long time, who have put in a lot of hard work, and who want to do the right thing. So just like being fair with hiring practices, creating a hiring criteria, there's going to be criteria for qualified people who know how to do this job. I think that in the last couple of years, that has been the problem. Have to have people who are qualified to do these jobs.
Thank you.
Let's talk about campaign contributions. 4 years ago, we encouraged voters to follow the money. When we did our research, it linked former Sheriff Guzman campaign cofer to people receiving inflated contracts from Guzman himself, looking like a quid pro quo situation. This includes people who profit off the sheriff's auction of cars, homes, estates. Many in our community worry about this shady side of things in an office that is under Foley and Guzman was treated like a feudal. Are you seeking donation from people who aspire to do business with OPSO?
I'm not seeking.
If so, how will you ensure that no special treatment from their donors who give you money?
I'm not seeking any donations from any particular entity or person that may do business with the sheriff's office. But if they decide to donate to my campaign, I would accept it. But that does not mean that they're not going to have to go through the same process that any vendor will go through. That has to be transparent. How do you make that transparent? People are running away from the brass system, and I don't know if you know what the brass system is, but it's a system that the city uses where vendors go through. They have to put in bids, of course, and then the city decides who they're going to use, and they get paid through that system. So you can see exactly how much money is being paid to those vendors, if it's in excess or if it's inflated or too much. The city pretty much gets to choose who those vendors are. So I would make it transparent in that way, and I would make sure, I don't care who donates to my campaign, and y'all don't know me personally, but there are people who know me personally. I'm not doing any of that. There's no favoritism. I'm not promising anybody anything. I don't work that way. I don't operate that way. It has to be fair, and everybody is going to be considered. But I think, in keeping with transparency and accountability, we have to get inside of a system where you can see on a daily basis what vendors are being used, how much money they are being paid, and if whether you want to know or not, you can see if this person has donated to made any type of contribution to my campaign, to know if it's being done fairly, if it's equitable. I can assure you that will not happen under Michelle Woodfork at all.
Okay. We'll be watching to see Miss Woodfork.
I want you to. I'm gonna make it clear for
because
you.
Because the only time when we get money and donors in, says people tend to do.
I understand, but
things.
everybody has a fair shot at it.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have a fair shot at doing business with the sheriff's office, but it's going to be whatever the best vendor is for whatever particular service that person provides. It's not because they made any contributions to me.
Sounds good.
Well, first of all, we'd like to thank you for taking the time out to come and have this interview with us. And finally, what last message would you like to share with the voters about your candidacy? Is there anything we haven't asked that you feel is important that your community want to know?
I want people to know the real grassroots reason why I'm running for sheriff. I really love the city. I didn't want to be the police chief anywhere else. I didn't want to work in public safety anywhere else, and I had several offers. I even had an offer from the sheriff herself to come and work under her, just as I was retiring in 2024. I want to make my city safe. It's important that the city that I was born and raised in, that I love and probably going to die in, is safe. And I'm running because I think it's absolutely important that we elect someone who has the qualifications, who has the experience, who has the knowledge and the ability to fix the things that are wrong inside of this agency, and do it in a transparent way. Do it in a way that includes everyone in the community, our community members, our council members, the people in the mayor's administration, the criminal justice stakeholders. This has to be a community that comes together and puts a strategic plan together and make sure that this time that this jail is run correctly, that this time it's the most constitutional. We need to be the example. A couple of years ago, the police department had the coveted example of constitutional policing. I want the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Department to be the example of constitutional jailing, of constitutional corrections. What a great system looks like. That it provides rehabilitation, re-entry, reunification, the things that jail improvements, a pay that is not just a living wage for the people who work there, but that's a thriving wage, where they have educational opportunities, training opportunities, upward mobility inside the agency. This jail could absolutely be the face of constitutional jailing, the way a jail is supposed to work. It just takes good leadership, it takes good management, it takes transparency, it takes a collective strategic plan, and some accountability.
Okay, thank you. For anything else that you want your voters to, while you're closing out, you can say.
I am Michelle Woodfork. I'm a candidate for sheriff. I'm number 6 on the ballot, and I would love to have your vote as your next sheriff.
Thank you.